Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're super excited for today's webinar, Streamlining Your Accounting Firm's Technology Operations. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. You can see a few of our smiling faces in the video screen. And I guess that will be a good transition into introducing today's speakers. First and foremost, kind of from right to left on your screen, I'm Matt. I'm the country manager for Australia at Hubdoc, and I'm really pleased and I think fortunate to be joined by two guests today. One being Richard McLean, co-founder of KeyPay. How's it going, Richard?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. And also, I guess last but certainly not least, someone who is going to probably provide most of the content today, as it were. We're pleased to be joined by Adam Ramage, who's the Principal Business Technology at Morrows Pty Ltd. How's it going, Adam?
Hi, Matt. And thank you to both yourself and Richard for allowing me to come on, have a bit of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're really looking forward to this today. So before we get into the meat of the webinar, I did want to go through a couple housekeeping notes. First and foremost, it's not even on this screen, but if you see that our faces, our big ugly mugs are a little too big, and you're not seeing actually the slides, now the slides are just placeholders, but if you want to see a little bit more of the slide content, just drag our basically the video up a little bit. You can see a little bit less of our faces and more of the slide, just so you can see what topic we're currently covering. Good best practice. We've had that complaint before. Not that we aren't beautiful, gentlemen.
Exactly.
Secondly, what we'll talk about is we'll send you the recording. So no worries at all. You'll be getting the recording as a follow-up. So register, attendee or not, keep an eye on that probably on Thursday at some point. Ask questions in the GoToWebinar panel. So a lot of the kind of questions I think drive at the end of the webinar a lot of our really kind of important conversation, and I'm sure many of you will have questions, as I certainly do, for Adam. And so what we'll try to do is we'll go through a question and answer period during the webinar, where myself and Richard will be asking Adam questions, but we'll do a question and answer session at the very end to answer any questions from the audience. So once again, in the GoToWebinar control panel, please ask questions. We'll make sure we moderate them and get to you when appropriate. Finally, and this might be obvious, might go without saying, but just close any unnecessary windows. If you can turn your phone over, maybe put it on silent. Just try to give us kind of some engagement. We're not trying to take up too much of your time this afternoon, but chances are if you registered and attended this webinar, you want to get the most out of it. Amazing. So a bit of table setting for the webinar now. We're going to be discussing, first and foremost, navigating the cloud accounting technology ecosystem, streamlining technology operations at your firm, and finally, increasing your value as an advisor. Now, obviously, these are relatively high level and wide-ranging topics, but we're going to get into, I guess, the more nitty-gritty as we transition into the conversation. So buckle up and let's get going. So Adam, I did want to, I guess, take it back to the beginning. Can you tell us a bit about your background and basically how you got to where you are today at Morrows?
Sure, and I think I've got 18-year-old twins who are starting their VC exams today, Matt. So the fact that where you start may not necessarily be where you finish is probably a good way to start. So I was 7 years between high school and coming to Melbourne to start studying accounting, and during that time I was a contract grain harvester, a farmhand, a tractor driver, a rouseabout, and I was a fully qualified wool classer when I came to Melbourne. And I had to start in TAFE because my year 12 marks weren't good enough. So hopefully my kids might have a better outcome today. But I didn't let that define me. And I started at TAFE, transferred to uni. And then while I was still at uni, I started working in accounting, and that was 26 years ago. So I worked for a small public practice firm, originally in Brunswick. We then moved to North Melbourne, to Hawthorn, back to Brunswick again. And then I transitioned, sold that firm I became a partner after 7 years and then was sole owner about 10 years after that. And then in 2014, I sold that firm to a multidisciplinary firm in Camberwell. And they did legal, financial planning, general insurance, as well as tax and accounting. And then in July 2017, I came to Morrows. So I came to Morrows as probably the first person in the biz tech division. So really focusing on that technology side of the accounting industry, obviously in the space where you and Richard are experts. But that was certainly an exciting time for me, starting with one and then two and now 8 people in our BizTech division. We do a lot of bookkeeping in that, but it just shows that where you start from as a contract grain harvester, you don't necessarily have to end with.
Absolutely. I mean, I sort of I see some similarities. I was never a great student and sort of feel like I fell very serendipitously into the current profession I'm in. What was the connection to accounting? What got your foot in the door?
Well, I think when I was doing the wool classing certificate, I realised I was enjoying the learning, and I was always reasonably good at maths at high school. And I've been in business, but between share farming, contract harvesting, and so forth. So I thought maths and business sounds like accounting. So I gave it a whirl, and I'm lucky that I enjoyed it. I always thought that I'd probably end up working for industry because I enjoyed the management accounting side of it. But the people side of public accounting turned out to be what really appealed to me. So people and then always been keen on technology. So started working with Lotus 123 macros in 1992 and graduated through to cloud accounting.
Matt was around there, mate.
Yeah, no, I don't reckon he was, but anyway, I'm sure he's dealt with macros at some stage, and graduating through to cloud accounting when it became a reality. So
that's great. Well, you know what? I think that's something that I always took from speaking with anyone who is my senior, is that where you begin isn't necessarily where you end. So that's pretty incredible. Now, kind of touching on Morrows, you are the principal of business technology at Morrows. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about your role and what your responsibilities include?
Sure. So just to explain, Morrows, a multidisciplinary firm. In July this year, we merged with another firm to basically double in size. So Rag, we joined the Morrows stable. We have legal, we have private wealth, we have superannuation as a specialist division, we have audit, we have assurance, and we have accounting, tax, and business technology. So business technology is app advisory, doing implementations of Xero add-ons with clients. Our methodology is based around doing a diagnostic. So very big believers in the phrase that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So we always try and work with our clients to understand what they're trying to do before recommending particular software and so forth. So my day, obviously I'm principal of a team of 8. So there's team management, there's workflow planning, there's budgets, there's invoices, there's all of that really fun stuff. Morrows is still a timesheet firm, so I've got to fill in the timesheet. And then there's actually working with clients. So both in business advisory, systems advisory, and I guess app advisory as well.
That's really great. Now, just to dig in a little bit more about this, this team you talked about, team of 8. What does the team makeup of that team look like, and how do you all kind of fit?
Oh, well, I'm not sure that we fit at all. No, we are an interesting bunch. So I have some really really talented accounting and bookkeeping specialists who work with me. I have a network systems specialist who works with me as well, who has some fantastic background into larger ERP systems. So it is a range, a couple of CPAs, chartered accountants, network systems expert, a couple with Cert 4 in bookkeeping. So we are hands-on with some bookkeeping with clients. So again, taking that app advisory, leveraging the systems to help us help our clients.
Now, have you generally created that team internally, or have you hired for a specific role externally for that team?
Yeah, no, we've hired externally. So or the network systems specialist, Natalie actually joined us as part of the merger with Ragwear. So that was a great pickup for us to be able to do that next level of tech when the circumstances arrive.
Got it. So sort of moving over to another kind of question was, we know that Morrows is 100% Xero, and you're operating, as much as you can 100% in the cloud. So it's a bit of a two-part question, but the first part is, what are some of the challenges you face as a 100% cloud firm?
I think change management is definitely one of those challenges. Everyone would like to think that the cloud makes things perfect, and that's not always the case. There's no one size fits all. One of the beauties of working in the app advisory space is you can actually try and design what a particular business needs. But within a multidisciplinary firm like Morrows, actually each division can have its little quirks that it needs to operate on, and even within tax and accounting, there's those different needs as well. So what challenges? I think the challenges of change management, implementing systems properly, making sure that people are not, once they're implemented, making sure they're being used and adhered to, without necessarily cramping everyone's style such that they don't feel like they can be individuals. So I think people management, even though we're talking about technology, the people management side of it's probably the most important to get right.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Now, to kind of flip that question, what are some of the benefits, or what are the goals or objectives that you're actually able to achieve by being 100% cloud enabled?
Maybe just before going to that one, Richard, with your business, which is 100% tech and 100% cloud, what do you see as challenges that, as you grow and change?
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. The change management process is the most difficult. So changing people's perception of the value that they get from moving to applications that specialize in delivering a solution for them, rather than jumping in with the types of applications that deliver, lots of solutions but not very well. So I think that's the main difference in market, is that with the app stores available attached to accounting systems, you get a really positive outcome for the business, and it's of huge value, which traditionally the accounting softwares didn't have. So it's definitely changing the way people think about the way they manage their business, I think, is the challenge.
Yeah, I think you're right too. I think if you think of, we talk about this a lot, like that the small business ERP is obviously, cheaper and more powerful than what a major Fortune 500, company can have nowadays at a fraction of the price. But, the idea of all of these separate systems that can be integrated, but takes, knowledge and time to do that, can be quite daunting. And, if I'm a business owner who's been in practice and work for 30 plus years and probably operating at a profit, am I going to be, thinking proactively about making those changes? And I'm sure those are exactly some of the issues that you're currently talking about, Adam.
Yeah, and now if we go on to your question about goals and objectives, Matt, I think the one thing that being cloud focused enabled Morrows to do was to actually manage the merger with the new firm. As I say, almost doubling in size and being able to cope with that and have everyone running largely the same systems in a very short period of time. It has been, the cloud's certainly enabled that. Now, there's been a lot of work done with the change management and the culture management and so forth. We have, when Morrows is now over 2 levels in our building, and one of those levels is hot desking. One of the levels has fixed locations. We're all using a cloud phone system. The ability to move from one desk to another and still take your phone with you provides an example of how being cloud-based has enabled that objective that the Morrows directors have to grow and increase the business. So I think that's probably the main one, is enabling us to continue to service our clients in the Morrows way. We have a one-team methodology where we try and look at the client holistically, and if they have a need in a particular area, we can bring in a knowledge specialist in that field, and with the technology stack that we have in place, they can have access to the key information that they need to be able to achieve that. So that they're probably the two things: is being able to facilitate that growth, and also being able to bring in knowledge experts at will, almost, to help clients when they need it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and I think that's a good way to discuss it, because you talk about how cloud can actually help you internally, but also obviously provide a tremendous amount of value to clients. Can you touch more on maybe a story or an anecdote or something rather where really being 100% cloud enabled has really driven increased value for clients?
Yeah, I think if I look at it from a client point of view, we had a client who has 2 distinct businesses operating using cloud accounting software and some other, not just accounting tools, but some, receipt capture and so forth. They were running each business with some management in place, so they weren't necessarily fully hands-on in either business. So we were providing them with the flexibility of understanding their performance from a really regular perspective. An opportunity came knocking in regards to the possible sale of both enterprises at almost the same time, and that whilst they didn't have to make the decision on the spot, they actually had the information that they wanted to be able to help them make a decision or have a better conversation with the potential acquirers of the businesses. So I think that's a classic example of the 2 businesses are not in Melbourne, where our office is in Melbourne. These 2 businesses are in country Victoria. The clients are based in a whole separate location, and we're able to have a conversation with them regardless of where they were, and providing them oversight and visibility of their performance and their options without any sort of delay or no friction, I guess, in the conversation. So
right, whereas you would have been driving out to country Victoria to even broach this conversation in the past, I guess.
Or waiting for the disk to come in the mail to load the MILE file onto the server and then work out what version it was, and yeah. Anyway.
Nightmare.
What's a disk?
Exactly. We did it again. I've been around for long enough to know how that worked, and you did what you did at the time because it was the best available. It's just amazing now to be able to have those that different level of visibility and different conversation with the client so readily and so easily.
Completely. Now that really segues nicely into the next topic around the technology operations. What are some of these tools that you use in your cloud accounting tech stack?
For clients, obviously we're a 100% Xero firm, even though our clients are not necessarily 100% Xero. But so our go-to is Xero for cloud accounting. We use for payroll, we use Xero Payroll where appropriate. We use KeyPay where appropriate. So thank you, Richard, for your fantastic product. We use Tanda where appropriate for some rostering options. And we've also got a particular client who's using an ERP system, and we're using Infinite Cloud as a cloud-based payroll system that we haven't been able to talk them into KeyPay for that one yet, Richard, but it's got some other integrations that it's working through. So that's payroll. For receipt capture, Matt, we do use Hubdoc. We're also big users of Receipt Bank. So both of those tools free up the data, enable clients to take a photo on their phone, or with Hubdoc being able to go and fetch information automatically. So that's part of our standard stack, and certainly with the clients that we work with internally, so do their bookkeeping internally, we require either Receipt Bank or Hubdoc as part of that offering to make sure that we're not going back to the client every minute asking for more documents. From a reporting point of view, we use custom reports in Xero, so we customize a lot of reports in Xero, and love what they've done with their flexibility over the last 12 months. We are large Futurely users within Morrows, and we're also the tried and true Excel reporting users as well. So Excel might not be perfect, but it certainly does a lot.
Absolutely.
So that's our standard stack with clients.
Yeah.
Is that what you were looking for, Matt?
Yeah, no, I mean that's awesome, because especially if you look at a cloud accounting tech stack, you look at stuff that does allow you to better service your clients. And I mean, I'm in a similar position where we have tools that we use internally to better automate processes, but whether it's Slack or HubSpot or obviously Salesforce as our CRM, but certainly the customer facing accounting tools you touched on is exactly what I was looking for. Now, when it comes to apps and really evaluating and deciding, there's obviously 700 apps in the ecosystem. Like, how do you and your team stay on top of the latest and greatest?
Well, you can't always stay on top of the latest and greatest, Matt, and you go crazy if you were trying to, I think. I guess listening is the number one skill from that point of view. So in today's world, you listen via online reviews, you listen via programs like webinars like this, you listen to people you trust. So I won't hesitate to say that if I've got a curly issue around payroll, I might bump Richard on Twitter and just say, hey, what's going on with this, and why are some of the other competitors not doing what they should? Is that right? And but yeah, so listening to trusted resources, but asking questions as much as possible. So podcasts, webinars, online reviews. So your app stores generally have a review, star review. Xero, apps.com has the star reviews. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And once you do work out who to trust in with various bits, reach out to them, contact, connect. So that's probably the way that I do it. I won't profess to being on top of the latest and greatest. If you find something that's working, it's that whole change process. Do you want to go back to a client and say, oh, that thing we put in 6 months ago, here's a new one. But we do keep listening.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right, because I mean, after all, the implementation is a whole other can of worms after you realize that an app is great. Now, with regards to how that works, is it kind of part of your team's responsibilities to test, trial, and then kind of begin the implementation process?
Yes. So, and even from, if I look at our network specialist yesterday, she was testing a till and POS system that we're implementing with a client next week. So she was sitting at her desk testing the till system. That's an example of what we do. So we might have selected that particular hardware and software that we're going to use, but still want to test it before we take it out on site to make sure it does do what it said it was going to do. Yes, largely if we understand the, first correctly, deeply understand the need of the client. If we have a solution already in our stack that we know works, then we'll look at that. If we need to look further, then it's a case of using all of those sources I mentioned, Twitter, LinkedIn, experts, and even getting on the phone if need be, to actually find out. And then you can do a trial. Trials are always a bit tricky, particularly with more complex software, because a lot of the time you don't know where you're going to fall over, where a failure point might be. So if you do, most of the software providers, however, are quite honest. So if you can have a conversation with them, rather than just a blind trial, actually have a conversation with them about the particular business you're looking at, what their needs are, and they will talk to you about, okay, this is how it operates in this, and you know what, our product mightn't be appropriate in this instance. So I do think that level of honesty is increasing, and certainly for the larger players.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Now, like when we talk about, you have technology, you've evaluated it, you like it, and you'd like to start using it with clients. I'm gathering for certain businesses and certain clients, there would be, common questions or concerns that come with leveraging cloud technology.
I think they haven't changed much over the past 10 years, probably, Matt. Who's got access to the data? So how safe's the data? Where's it housed? What does it cost? How do we control it? If we want to move our data, in 2 years' time, can we get access to it? Is Big Brother watching? Am I going to lose everything by signing up to this? All of those are the general questions, and I guess the ease of use is also, if a client's been using MyOb for the last 20 years, you might think that they are going to have the most wonderful experience ever, but that's going to be after a little bit of pain in that learning process. So you do want to make sure that you're taking all those things into account when you look at the solution.
For sure. Now, you think we've sort of, reached a tipping point? Are you starting to see less and less questions about security and the like, or what do you think?
There's probably the focus on the Russian and identity thefts and those sorts of things are still around. It's still real. I think clients like to know that their data, if their data is going to be housed in Australia, that it is going to be housed in Australia. I think the notifications, like, well, Richard will be well aware, we all got on all of our cloud software over the last 3 months about GDPR and that the privacy rules. Even for a business like Morrows, if we have a data breach, then who we have to notify and so forth. So I think that security definitely hasn't gone away. Cost still hasn't gone away, because if people are used to either not updating their software or updating it only when they need to, they might think that a monthly subscription is expensive. But when you go through the total cost of ownership of both hardware and software, that generally goes away. The Big Brother questions, I'm not sure that they're going away. Internet's probably going away to a large extent. The access to the internet is increasing. We are doing an implementation in the Yarra Valley at the moment they're still using ADSL 2, and with one of the programs that we're using, or we probably think that with their POS system, they would be better off if they were able to beef that up a bit. But there's an option there. It's just a case of getting access to it.
Makes sense. So before I pass the interviewer conch, so to speak, over to Richard. Kind of final question. Let's say, I'm a mid-sized accounting firm who's looking to kind of take the next step and create a technology operations division. What advice would you give them? Where should they start?
Client. Start with the client first. Why are they wanting to do that? What needs are they trying to satisfy, or what problems are the clients having that they want to be able to help the client with? That's probably step number one. And step number two is, do they have either the resources to either do it themselves or to invest in getting the resources to do it?
Great piece of advice. I think that any company, if you start with a client focus, you're generally starting from a good place, and you generally are going to end up having positive results more so than not.
So, Richard, I know that you've only recently launched in the UK, and I believe are already an award winner in the UK. How did you make that decision?
It was an interesting decision, actually. We took on the UK to challenge ourselves as a development business. So
wow.
it was less about a commercial decision to expand and increase business value. It was more about broadening our horizons as a dev business and challenging the team to try and achieve stuff that we do every day, but we do it in another region. So there's a whole lot of complexity in that. So yeah, it was probably not obvious to most why we did it.
I guess so. That just shows that at your heart, you see yourselves as a development business. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So the focus is really changing the way people do business and using technology to improve it. So if we focus on the tools to deliver that stuff to business, then business gets a good result out of it, and that's if we've got happy customers, we've got a great business.
Yeah, and I think that's right. So Matt, for Morrows as an advice house, we would look at, when Morrows decided to start up a BizTech division, they were looking at, okay, how can we help our clients? How can we advise our clients better in this space from an app advisory and a systems advisory perspective, and how can we help them move themselves to cloud accounting like they had? So Morrows did that before I had arrived, moved to Xero prior. So they looked at how can they help their clients do the next step as the starting point.
Perfect. All right, well, we'll transition over to Richard in our next topic, increasing value.
Awesome. Adam, you provided a really great example before about how cloud provided some value to a client. Do you have any other examples of a story of when cloud accounting technology enabled you to provide faster or more effective advice to a client, and how that in particular helped that client?
Yeah, I guess that it's the visibility of performance that matters most when you talk about adding value. We can process a payroll nicely from another state. Yes, we can lodge a BAS in record time. But I think it's that visibility of performance, both to the business owner and to their other interested parties, I guess. So if we're doing the internal accounts for a client, we might look at weekly touch points with their accounts to make sure that they're all up to date. And this can be, your client might be, or a client of ours might be doing their own bookkeeping in-house, but by using cloud technology, bank feeds, and so forth, they can have that visibility of the minute that we as advisors can then review, and if they need to seek finance from a bank, probably the biggest one, we had a client who was looking to buy their freehold. The bank needed up-to-date financials in a hurry, because these things always get left to the last minute, and being able to provide all of that data, the information, firstly from a global perspective, but then when the bank come back and ask particular questions, to be able to answer those with a high level of immediacy and confidence was huge value to the client. And they get their finance, they get their freehold, and they understand how it all come together.
So from a Morrows perspective, the adding of value in a scenario like you've just explained, what's the benefit for Morrows? Is there additional charging that do you increase your revenue per customer? What's the value to Morrows as well?
Well, I guess with our clients, a large proportion of our clients are on what we an annual retainer, so an agreed monthly fee or an agreed annual fee, generally paid monthly, and we would include in that sort of visibility of performance. So being able to assist them in a particular instance, like bank finance, is part of that advice offering. But it could be that we're having regular quarterly business performance reviews with them, and we have that information. We have the reports either straight out of Xero or using Futurely to provide them with additional insight we do have a couple of clients who work with on a monthly basis from that perspective. So I guess the value to Morrows is that we can offer that at a, I don't pretend that we're the cheapest around, but at a price point that still offers value to the client far in excess of the costs. So that's really where it comes down to for Morrows. And looking at the broader Morrows, the reality is that we can have that information in biz tax that we can then share with private wealth or the legal team. Likewise, they can share information back with us to make sure that we do keep an eye on the client from a holistic point of view. So the ability to share across divisions gives us some internal cost savings possibly, but also provides us with the opportunity to broaden the service offering. So there is that addition.
So that leads into my next question pretty well, because Morrows has a really quite broad variety of services. How often do you guys consider service expansion or the offering of new services?
So I guess with the bringing together of the recent acquisition or recent merger, Morrows now has audit and assurance that we didn't have before. Prior to that, BizTech was the most recent addition of services. But I guess on a daily basis, we have a one-team approach to client management. So try and look at the clients all the time from a holistic point of view. And so if they're a tax client but they have a legal issue, or if they're a private wealth client and they have a tax issue, we're able to actually provide the option of access to a subject matter expert. And a lot of those interactions will just be introductory, so obviously no cost to the client to be introduced and to try and get an understanding of the services that we offer. To introduce new service divisions, Morrows is a large business now, 150 people, so there's certainly some process to be followed if we wanted to start up a new service offering today.
Yeah, so what sort of drives the decisions to implement a new service offering? Is it equally technology, or is it opportunity to increase the value to the clients?
I would hope that it's always opportunity to increase value to the clients, Richard. I'm not a director at Morrows, but certainly when we talk about what Morrows does, it's an advice house. So we want to be providing value or increasing value to the Morrows community, either internally or externally. So we'll always look at it from a client first perspective. That profit's not a dirty word, of course, but we won't be doing something for just those purposes if it was outside of the values of Morrows. So values of Morrows: working together, innovation, authenticity. You can hardly sit down with a client and talk about authenticity and adding value to them if that's not why you're doing it.
Yeah, sure. So the from a technology point of view, and adding value, increasing value to your clients, do you have any tips, in particular around the technology, for building a business case for adding new services?
Building a business case. Ooh, that's a tough one, because I guess if we look at app advisory, a client can quite easily click on the Xero marketplace and look at, oh, well, there's an inventory program. How about I run that? Or there's a payroll option. I'll just adopt that. And it's got a 4-star review, so it must be good. It must suit what I'm doing. So I guess when we look at that, we go, okay, where's the diagnostic? Where's the diagnosis first before the prescription of let's implement that software?
Yeah. So is thinking about technology and adding value, what's some of the small ways that the advisors in Morrows can add big amounts of value to their clients' businesses?
I think if we look at the visibility of performance is huge. If I look at BizTech, I would say that the small ways that we can do that is by trying to replace any friction within the business operating system or systems with synergy. So we look to take out friction and replace it with synergy. So having and the classic example of that is having 2 pieces of software that actually integrate, rather than 2 pieces of software that have to rely on double entering of the same data. Great example of that is where we've now got clients who have got their staff logging into a device that's automatically recording their timesheet data. They used to use basically a punch card system that did record the start and stop times, but then that data had to get sent away to a totally different location to be processed, come back to it, then and go into a payroll system to then go into their accounting system. It was just there was just friction everywhere in that model, and that's a classic example of taking the friction out to add that value.
Yeah, it's that's pretty commonplace, the multi-handling of data, and what people don't realize is the amount of mistakes that can get made in that process, because there is so much manual handling. Even if they're data entry into spreadsheets and then into payroll, it's a significant benefit. So looking at the future, what's your biggest concern about the way cloud accounting technology systems are evolving in the marketplace, and how does that apply to your business?
I guess one of the fears might be what Matt mentioned early on, is how do you stay on top of the latest and greatest? Implementation of new system is always a challenge from a change management point of view. So making sure that something's implemented properly, but being appropriate to the client need, and not having the back end where the data's being sucked off to some Russian data farm. Big brother, identity theft, it is real. Identity theft is definitely real. But the concerns is probably around that change management, keeping on top of the latest and greatest. If if that's actually a goal of yours to keep on top of that, I would argue that that's what we should be doing, is helping the client first.
And then finding a solution, right?
Yeah.
So you know, we kind of focus on the things that are hard to deal with in the industry. But what's the things that excite you about the evolution of cloud accounting technology and the ecosystem that supports it?
I guess that ability to replace friction with synergy. So, you know, if we can give business owners more time to work on the business, because I think that's the big one for business owners. If they can focus more on what they're the best at, and if you know, from an entrepreneurial point of view, to be able to spend time working on the business rather than in it doing books and accounting, then that's great. Having the visibility of performance, so having the knowledge that they can, having that performance information quite visible, I find that really exciting. I might be a nerd to be able to say that, you know, we can show clients where their profits and where their margins and where their levers are, I guess the financial levers of their business. I find that quite exciting. And yeah, so really allowing the businesses to hum rather than to grind.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that, you know, we've talked about a little bit, but the you know, what's some advice you can give advisors that are in the webinar today who want to keep up with the ever-changing accounting technology ecosystem? I know you've said that you know, you should probably pick some you know, some standard applications that you deal with, but what's the best way to deal with that you know, changing technology?
Yeah, keeping up with the latest and greatest, and understanding what options are out there. I would leverage other people's knowledge. So listen as much as possible to what's going on in the market. You know, download some podcasts on cloud accounting. There's a few decent. There's even a couple of decent ones around now. But not just on cloud accounting. You can do that on just general business, and there's plenty of discussion points around that. I'm a member of a discussion group for information technology with the chartered accountants. So there's lots of resources out there if you're comfortable to engage in listening. So listen, ask, and listen again. So if you want to keep up to date, that's probably the best advice that I can get. Listen to all the possible options that are out there.
Okay, yeah, that's great advice. I think that you know, the ecosystem itself is really valuable to business, and you know, one of the things that we do have is an enormous amount of knowledge about what we do, and you know, we all like to share that knowledge. So you know, talking to apps and finding out you know, the future of what they think is going to happen in market is also pretty important, in my opinion. So the other thing
that's fantastic advice, Richard. So that's way better than my advice. So I hope all of you are listening to that. Talk to the apps themselves and ask them what's happening.
Yeah,
is that right, Matt?
It's spot on. I mean, I think that we at times, and I'm sure Richard can agree with this, the app partners have more conversations with advisors than just about anyone. And I can tell you firsthand, that's really how I've built my knowledge about the entire space. And so constant communication with our partners and prospective ones is never a bad idea for anyone.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's you know, we're all trying to achieve something, and if we work together to achieve it, then we're going to do it a lot quicker, I think. So, and that kind of leads me into the last question, Adam. What is your favorite learning from working as the principal of business technology at Morrows?
Well, I guess when the role was first proposed as an option, I was very excited about the opportunity to you know, to really knuckle down into the tech part of accounting and public accounting and business advice. But after when the rubber hits the road, it's really the people that you work with, both your team and your clients, that end up being the most rewarding, who you learn most off. And even today, learning off you two guys has been fantastic. And as I say, Richard, I think that last piece of advice was golden. So it's the people, and that's probably also the challenge, is the people management, the change management process. So remember that your people are your biggest asset, and work with them both culturally and from a process point of view to make sure that they're supported when you're taking on a new application, a new division, a new service offering.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. That's some great insight. So I might throw it back to Matt, and we'll kick off the Q&A session.
Perfect. Yeah. So we'll do that before some. I guess before, really quickly, we'll do some shameless promotion of our products, just very briefly. You'll give us that. So, anyways, any advisor, accountant, bookkeeper is entitled to their very own free VIP Hubdoc account. All you have to do is go to app.hubdoc.com/sign up. You get a call from someone from our team to see if you have any questions and help you get started. So once again, it's as easy as that. app.hubdoc.com/sign up. And ideally, you play around with it for yourself, and then you can begin to, see value that you might have for your client, maybe for your firm as a whole, and scale from there. Really leverage the platform and realize the benefits of scale. Over to you, Richard.
We've got a 60-day free trial available. Just use the Hubdoc promo code in the sign-up process. But I really want to focus on looking at the compliance issues around payroll and ensuring that your clients are really focusing on the things that they need to focus in their business. So spending a lot less time doing payroll and spending a lot more time looking at the benefits of an application that provides you with workforce management and streamlining and time saving. So keypay.com.au, use the promo code Hubdoc18, and you'll get a 60-day free trial. Thank you.
And just for some, I'll add to some shameless promotion for you guys. One of the best things about working with both KeyPay and Hubdoc is their support. So when you do have a question, you can actually get a rapid fire answer to your questions. So I can personally vouch for both of them.
A real person on the other end, which I always find very important. When
absolutely.
I can't. How many times I'm talking to a chat bot and I lose my mind. Well, they are getting better. Well, perfect. So we actually have some great questions from the audience before we wrap, and quite clearly they're directed at you, Adam. So first question is, you mentioned you offer app advisory at Morrows. The question is, how do you package app advisory services?
Okay, so that's we don't package it as app advisory services. It's part of the Morrows advice pack. So Morrows over the whole business has quite a defined sales process, and part of that process is exploring the needs of the client. So in that, there might be an uncovered need for some systems review, some accounting systems review, some payroll systems review. So we will then look at, okay, do we do a full-scale diagnostic on the business services? And it's only after that diagnosis that we will prescribe. And that prescription might be, yes, we can implement, we'll offer some training, or we'll do a full-scale implementation that might run over months to make sure that the client's using the tools properly and are equipped to do that. One of the challenges that I probably didn't highlight strongly enough with any of these applications is my bugbear, FTI, failure to implement. Without proper implementation, a lot of these just become dust gatherers in the corner. Yeah, so I would say we don't sell app advisory. We advise clients on systems improvements.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Richard, do you see the chat section? There's a question you can ask Adam there at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel.
Gotcha. Sorry, it wasn't scrolling. A question for Adam. Do you audit your technology stack?
We do. We also, I'll be quite honest, within Morrows there's some shadow technology that certain divisions are using. But before anyone would take that on, they would do it from the point of view of, okay, what's the security levels of it, reputable companies, where's the data stored, and so forth. So we probably haven't got a formal process nailed down for that yet, but certainly, you know, anything that we've done, so we're using Microsoft Teams within the BizTech to link both our OneNotes from, so Morrows is a big OneNote user across the firm, but within BizTech we actually link that to our Microsoft Teams and so forth. So that's all within Office 365. So that's simple. But if we look at adding anything else on, yes, we will want to look at the security aspects of the tech. Yeah.
Right. That's certainly a reasonably important part of the process that we find, especially around payroll and you know, the very, very confidential information that we store.
Absolutely. I mean, the information within payroll is ideal for identity theft purposes. So we know that, you know, we've been recommending our clients go on to two-factor authentication with Xero from the early days when it was first available for clients, and it continues to surprise us when clients don't take that up.
Yeah, it's a little shocking.
Absolutely right. Now, Adam, another question for you. We've been kind of talking a lot about people management, change management, and how these are some of the kind of major challenges that you face, both from internally and I think external perspective as well. Can you touch on, you know, maybe a golden rule or maybe a couple for how you can overcome certain issues? I know that's like such a high, wide-ranging question because managing people.
I didn't know we were going for another hour, Matt.
Can be like herding sheep, but you know, what's your biggest piece of advice for overcoming those challenges?
I think the biggest piece of advice is not to ignore it. So with the recent integration of two relatively similar sized firms, so Morrow's about 80 people pre-July and Ragweir about 60 people, so about 140 head at the moment. So there was a process that ran from you know, probably the start of June right through to now on a culture management point of view to make sure the cultures are aligned, that we're not actually telling, no one's telling the other they have to do things in a certain way. What we're doing is explaining why things are done in this way. So and picking up the best of breed from each of the firms, because you know, at Morrows we won't profess that we've got everything perfect, so we're always willing to learn. And I think that's the big thing again with trying to keep up to date with the apps. Listen and learn. So with culture, don't think that it's just going to happen. Actually take some effort. We're users of DISC profile to make sure that you understand the personalities of the people involved, and therefore sometimes where they will see threats coming that you might, you know, me as being a lover of tech and an adopter of change mightn't think that anything's a problem, whereas someone else who's been used to the same way for 10 years will see it as you know, the end of the world.
Yeah, I really like that advice. I mean, we at Hubdoc, as you can imagine, are going through a very similar integration.
Oh, really? What was that, Matt?
With this t-shirt I'm wearing. But you know what? It is. It's about listening and about learning and really being open to new ideas and collaboration. And I think that if you are as open as can be, you know, things are made easier, because it's not easy, and there's no, I think, you know, silver bullet that is going to make it easier. But you know, following those guidelines is going to help the process, no doubt. So that's bringing us to the end. Adam, Richard, thank you so very much for joining us today. That was phenomenal. Thanks to all the attendees. who stayed intently throughout the whole webinar. That was amazing.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Matt.
I'm sure we'll be seeing you both on the circuit before long, but if I don't see you before the holidays, have a happy holidays.
Your shout, Matt.
See you guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Okay. See you, Richard. See you, Matt.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.